We were mentioning the fear of losing our jobs for humans in this AI world.
Don't want to personally be left behind in the AI race.
Automation is all about people.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emma Duncan, and I am here with Kyle and Mike. We are a group of three that met back in December, and we have stayed in contact because we have a desire for AI and automations in our entrepreneurial world where we live. Kyle is the expert. Mike and I are here just to simply shoot the breeze, ask him questions saying, hey, I have an idea. I wish this existed. And more often than not, Kyle is amazing. He says it actually does. Or have you tried this or that? And so we decided to come together to create this podcast to share as Mike and I learn through hands-on and as we glean from Kyle and his expertise. Hi, guys.
Hey, Emma. It's funny. It kind of feels like you and I are the ones who come up with these crazy ideas. And then we go to Kyle and we're like, Kyle, can we do this? And he's like, no. Or he's like, yes, absolutely. Let's do it. And, that's to kind of strengthen Emma's point earlier. That's who we are, me and Emma. We are the ones who are novices when it comes to AI. We see a need. We see this movement towards AI in a lot of ways. And what we don't want to necessarily do, and I say this a lot, and I'm killing myself in my head right now because I do say it a lot, I don't want to personally be left behind in the AI race, right? And so I think that's part of the reason why we wanted to get together here is try to figure out how we as our real estate businesses, and you said it great, Emma, we're all in real estate in some degree, how in real estate we can use this AI to our advantage as best as we possibly can and not get left behind. And then also apply that to other things, maybe even personally, right? Our personal lives. How can we automate things in our personal lives? How can we, if we're doing something else outside of real estate, how can we use AI to our advantage?
Right.
So guys, thanks so much for including me. I really appreciate it. And Kyle, thanks so much for being the expert here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to be the expert in the room. It's funny because there's a saying that if you know more than the other person in the room, then you're the expert, right? So I feel like that's me. I just happen to have a little bit more experience in the side of automation and been kind of keeping up with AI for a while now, kind of understanding like how some of this stuff works under the hood at a high level. But, if you took me and you put me in the room with these guys who are actually developing these things, man, like they would be the leagues apart. So I'm just kind of here to help provide my perspective on, I think, what actually makes sense, application wise. And I'm happy to provide my perspective however I can. So it's awesome to be in the room with you guys though, because you guys have something I don't have. I've got all the background in automation, but you guys have a lot of the expertise in real estate. And your skills also are kind of unique as well. So Mike is, the closer, and Emma's the TC girl. They have some incredible skills, and maybe it would be good to share also about a little bit about you guys individually, because I know some people who are watching this probably know maybe a little bit about one of us, but don't know about each of us individually.
Mike, do you want to go first?
No, Emma, I want you to go first, actually.
All right.
First of all, I thought Kyle was talking about our modeling careers earlier. That was a little bit different from Kyle, but no, please, you go first.
Yeah, so I joined the creative real estate world. I did not have a real estate background when I did this, and it was over 2 years ago. I came in, and my background lends itself to operations, building out systems that manage people, make sure that events happen and they happen smoothly. And I switched over to the creative real estate world because I wanted to be have flexibility for my family, but financial security. And I realized that being a transactional coordinator and a fractional operator for investors allowed me to have my own business model that had that wheelhouse that where I was already shining, but I was able to apply it to real estate. So that's kind of the background that I come from. I have a team that I work with now called the TC Squad, and we offer operational support, transactional management, accounting services, and we just launched servicing for paying of bills and mortgages and things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've been in real estate for a long time. I know that you can't tell because I don't have a wrinkle yet, but I've been in real estate for about 20 years. My first job out of college was as a commercial real estate agent, and I failed miserably. Couldn't stand it. I did some deals, but it just wasn't my thing. I didn't like going to the office in a suit every single day and pretending like I knew what I was talking about at 23 years old. And so I eventually went from there into private equity real estate, and then to a hedge fund. And then I've worked in mortgages and all those sorts of things. And so my experience in real estate is long and wide. And what I do now, what I primarily focus on right now, is focusing on buying creative real estate, either with partnerships across the country, or I buy them locally here in Texas. I live in Austin, Texas, and I want to turn those into co-living spaces. And what I'm personally seeing with regard to this AI thing is this movement towards implementing AI just for even productive purposes personally. How can I make my, we all have kids here, right? We all have families, and we also have businesses and jobs within our businesses. And how can we free up more time or be more effective in the time that we are working? Because I know that the three of us would rather spend time with our families than we would if we had the choice between that and working. And so how can we make ourselves feel or look like we're doing an 18-hour a day job, but do it in a normal amount of time? Right. And so that's really what inspires me to continue to move forward and learn more about this AI thing. And, like I said before, I'm a complete beginner. So that's me. That's my experience. That's where I want to kind of take my AI journey in a lot of ways to see how I can become more productive as either a small team or a one-man show.
And Mike, I love hearing that because for me, it's like, how do I apply that in my businesses, right? But I'm also coming to this table, if you will, wondering, what are my investors that I help on a daily basis? What are they missing? And how can I help them buy back their time, right? What systems do we need to be putting in place so that they are freed up to be with their families? And so when you're talking, I'm sitting here going, oh yeah, like I need to do that in my own life, and I need to do that in my own systems, but also I know this person and that person that could benefit from learning this as well.
And, for me, Emma, I look at as a transaction coordinator, because it's something that I can never do, right? Like I feel like I'm the dancing bear in a lot of ways. Like, look over here, let's do deals together. And then when I need help, I go to people like you, Kyle, and you, Emma, to actually help me with the transaction. So the way that I look at your roles in my business and in the way that we work together is, you supply something, you complement me in a lot of ways that I can't do it myself, right? So for instance, Emma, if I were trying to close a transaction, it would take me 7 times as long to do that personally, because I find it so incredibly painful.
Yeah.
And I'm not good at it, but you are good at it, right? So for me, when I'm doing a deal, you're a time saver for me.
Right.
Kyle, same thing for you, right? Like, you are the workflow, the automation guy. And so when I need help saying, hey, how can I take this 3-hour task and turn it into a 1-hour task? Or how can I take this workflow of, I want to be able to send this email to this person, this email to this person. How can I do that in a way that's most effective? It would take me 10 times as long to figure that out on my own. So that's what I kind of love about our friendship together. And then also how we're kind of looking at this AI thing is, how can we really take these advancements and make us all much more effective and productive?
Yeah, I love what you guys have said. I would echo this idea that automation is all about people. We're always in the people business. That's what you do day to day, regardless of the type of business that you're in. It's all about how you can serve people. And so as we're exploring this stuff together and learning about ways that we can help people buy back their time, how to grow their businesses, how to serve their customers and clients better, at the end of the day, it really is all about how can we help people?
Yeah.
How can we help people save their time, spend more time with their family, spend more time doing the things that light them up, that give them energy, and then also the people that they serve too.
What are you seeing right now? I'm kind of curious because you're much more on the front lines than compared to myself and Emma. What are you seeing people need right now in their businesses? And of course, our businesses are much more real estate focused. What are you seeing people needing right now or feeling like they need, but maybe they can't really verbalize it and put it together? Are there any main traits among these things that people are really looking for right now?
Yeah. So the thing about this is that AI is so new. I mean, it's new in terms of its availability to people. I've been kind of watching the trends over the last 10 years. Technically AI has existed before that. It's just not been as useful per se. It's been more academic. But in the last 10 years, we've seen this gigantic shift from academic to application for people like myself who have these technical skills. And now it's starting to become more mainstream. So now it's more accessible to the general public to use in their day-to-day businesses. ChatGPT is a great example of this. For example, like with writing, helping you write copy or brainstorm ideas or whatever it is. So as far as like what people need, I think there's a challenge here of a lot of people don't even realize what they need just yet.
Yeah.
Like they're just so used to doing their stuff day to day that they don't realize how useful this technology can be in helping automate away some of these repetitive tasks that they do every day. The other thing I think that is a big need is an understanding of the difference between like a typical automation and AI and when you should leverage one versus another. Because this technology is so new, it's going to be very difficult, I think, for people to parse out where it makes sense, because you hear everybody getting excited about AI and everybody just thinks AI is coming for their jobs. But what does that really look like? Like, I don't think as doomsday as people think it is. But at the same time, if you don't get in on it, like you were talking about earlier, Mike, you're going to get left behind. You're leaving opportunity on the table.
Yeah.
I also think too a little bit that it's more of a mindset shift. It's almost training your brain to think maybe a little bit differently now that we have these tools available. And I'll give you guys an example. This is going to be a bad one. She might kill me for saying this. Not that I was going to say I won't use her name, but my wife this weekend was like, she was asking me a question. And it wasn't one of those questions where you kind of look at someone and you go, gosh, if there was just an internet site that you could go on that starts with a G, it ends with an E, and you can just search something. This was a little bit more in depth, right? It was more like, I think we were talking about plants outside. We just planted, we live in Central Texas. In Central Texas, with this kind of weather, we planted these kinds of plants. How often would you water them, basically, is kind of what the question was, I believe. And, taking that and how do you format that into a question for ChatGPT, for example, right? How can you throw that into an AI platform in its most effective way to get out the best response, right? It's the same thing as like CRM data, right? It's like dirty data in, what's the saying? I always forget. It's like, however clean your database is, that's the kind of data you're going to get back out of it. Yeah. And the same is true for prompting AI, or when you ultimately use AI, how can I use it most effectively?
Right.
Kyle, what kind of errors are maybe you seen in how people are currently using AI versus, maybe a situation where either they are just improperly prompting AI, or maybe they just shouldn't use AI at all? Does that question make any sense at all?
Yeah, it does. And I think this would even warrant like an in-depth video. So this is going to be a good podcast episode later, I think, to get into. But whenever you're dealing with these large language models like ChatGPT, you want to think about giving it as much context as possible, because these models have been trained with a certain amount of data. So they have some context, but they don't have your context. They can't interpret what's inside your brain any more than I can interpret what's inside of Mike's brain or Emma's brain off the drop of a hat, right? Like when you are communicating with people, you have to be clear about what it is you're talking about, what it is you're looking for in terms of your goals. If you need certain types of outcomes or formatting or anything like that, you have to be able to put that into your prompt. And then you have to be able to refine that. But those are kind of some of the things I think at a high level you should be thinking about when you're working with these new LLM technologies.
Pause right there. What did you just say? Because a lot of people who are newbies like us do not have the acronyms. So what did you just say?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And this is where we're going to get into some of the weeds in our future podcasts, right? So an LLM stands for a large language model. And it's a category of these AI models that are developed to be able to help predict and generate the next set of text given some previous text. So when you are typing in this information into ChatGPT or Claude or Google Gemini, these are all examples of large language models. It takes your text, it runs it through the machine, and then the machine actually predicts what the next best set of characters or words are going to be that it outputs.
Yeah.
So it's actually based in statistics, and it uses a lot of data to be able to train these things. So that's what a large language model is. And a lot of people are using them now, again, with these common technologies like ChatGPT. ChatGPT being one of like the first ones that were released, at least to the mainstream public.
What other? So you mentioned Gemini, you mentioned ChatGPT, you mentioned Claude. Would Anthropic be included in that as well?
Yeah. So Anthropic is actually the company that makes Claude.
Okay, got it. See, these are stupid questions that I will be asking you during this series. So thank you for not making me feel like an idiot.
No, these are good questions because the thing is, like, there is so much information out there, y'all. And I think this is something to keep in mind for everybody who's watching this, is even for a tech guy like myself, there is too much to keep up with everything. So you should not feel bad about not being able to understand or not be able to keep up with all the different things that are going on. There are people who make it their full-time job just to be able to research all the different releases that are going on and aggregate that and put it together into some content that people can consume. So don't feel bad. Like, seriously, just take it one step at a time. You will, over time, build up your skills and build up your knowledge just one little step at a time.
Question.
And that's really where we want to take this, right? Emma, you go ahead, please.
Yeah. So most of these LLMs have free versions and paid versions. What is the benefit of using a paid version versus a free version?
Yeah. So the benefits of using these paid versions, it depends on what's being offered, but typically it's based on the type of model that is available. Some of these models are trained to be able to handle data in a better way. They're able to maybe do certain things, like they have certain integrations built into them that maybe aren't available with the free models. Maybe some of them allow you to do like longer contexts as far as being able to put in more text and it be able to keep up with those things. So it really just kind of depends on the model, but that's what you're paying for. You're paying for access to these more sophisticated models as they are developing them and as they are releasing them.
You know, I think that's kind of where we want to take this a little bit, right? And in this session that we're having right here is really more of a teaser than anything else for anything that we're going to be doing in the future. But taking things from its most simplistic step and moving forward, I think is basically the way that we want to think about this, right? So, Emma, thanks so much for chiming in. I actually knew what an LLM was, so that's why it's important for us to be able to pick your brain, Kyle, and say, look, hold on, what exactly is that? How can we make sure that we're not sounding like, ingrates at the Thanksgiving table? I mean, how can we sound like we're the AI expert at the Thanksgiving table is probably the best way to say it. What's really interesting, I think, about our industry, the real estate industry, is that it's always been relatively slow to accept technology into it for a lot of reasons. But if you think of something like Zillow, for example, and Zillow has been using AI for a long time. They've been looking at millions of images and sold data and all of this information that they're getting from maybe MLSs or wherever they're getting their data from. I have no idea. But they've been using that for a while to generate their estimates, right? And Redfin's probably doing something very similar for their version of their estimates. And so are all the other ones. But, it's little things like, how can we utilize those sorts of things, maybe not to the same scale that Zillow or Redfin is, but individually in our own businesses, personally, even with our families, as I mentioned before. I was thinking, Kyle, while you were talking about these experts who have aggregated the data for AI, how cool would it be to take those 10 people who are aggregating all of the latest AI news and put that into one single source, which is completely possible, right? It's just making sure that you have the RSS feeds for these people and you just kind of put it into one single thing. But if you really think about it, where I'm going with this is that whatever you can think of, to some extent, things are possible to be done within this AI revolution, whether it's now or very near in the future. I mean, it feels like we're going so quickly. Am I the only one, Kyle, Emma, that feels like we're going so quickly into this?
No, we definitely are.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good.
And it's going to go faster.
Yeah.
So I think something for you guys to know and for everybody who's watching to know is that the more we develop these technologies, the faster it's going to go.
Right.
And it just has to do with, it's this compounding effect of, well, you develop a technology that can help you be more productive so you can get more things done that help you be more productive. And you keep on cycling that over and over again. There's some of the big things that I see on the horizon are like voice AI technology and integrating it with typical automations. I also think that, though I don't think it will replace programmers, it is certainly going to be, and will be speeding up the time to delivery for a lot of software engineers, like myself. So this is the kind of stuff that adds a compounding effect upon compounding effect. So it's just going to keep going.
Let's talk about at the very beginning. We were mentioning the fear of losing our jobs or less work space, right, for humans in this AI world. Can we talk a moment about how, Kyle, how you think that if you have a VA, if you have an assistant, don't get rid of that VA or assistant. Use AI and automations, right, to improve the workflow, like you're saying. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so my perspective on all this is typically I just look at automation in general, and that includes AI. I think of automation as this big umbrella, and AI is just one of the things under that category. So I think of automation as a force multiplier, right? You implement something that's automated that helps to make your team more effective. It adds a multiplier of effort, or towards your effort that you would typically take to accomplish some task. So, I would say there are certain tasks that may get automated away, but that doesn't mean that the job itself should get automated away entirely. The reason for that is there is an element of human skill and creativity and ingenuity that these machines can't perfectly replicate. So they have the appearance of creativity, but really it's just based on the training data. Mm-hmm. So, at the end of the day, you want people who can work with you, who can bring their skill sets, their creativity to the table to help make your team more effective overall. And if you just try to replace all your people with machines, then you're taking out those really important human elements. There's also a concern that I would have. I think it's short-sighted if you as a business owner attempt to just replace all your people with robots, because if the robots go down, how are you going to keep running your business? So you need this healthy balance, I think, to be very productive in the future and to help keep yourself afloat in the case of unexpected emergencies, to have this balance of people and machines. Mm-hmm. They help complement each other. They shouldn't just entirely replace one another.
Agreed.
Well, it's really interesting because I think you're exactly right. If we're using the VA example, I would love to be able to turn that VA that I have, for example, that one VA, in have that person produce to the level of 5 or 10 VAs, right? And it's that human in the loop type of element that we still need. I don't know if we're ever going to get there to the point where it's completely autonomous. I bet maybe at some point, but do we really want that, right? Because computers, machines are still capable of making mistakes. So are humans, right? But just having that oversight by that human to make sure that they are watching everything, to make sure it's done correctly, I think is probably the best way to go. But just the idea of that force multiplier idea. How can we take what we're currently doing and exponentially level up? Even its most simplistic way that, we can do it. And hopefully we talk about that here. But, I used the example of prompting before. And just the skill, and it's a skill, guys. This is not something that you just kind of come out, you're born with, right? You're an expert marketing assistant. Do this for me, right?
Right.
If you can learn the skill of how to do these most simplistic things, these most simplistic elements in AI, you're already ahead of the game. Yeah. And that's a skill. That's something that you can put on a resume. You can talk to people about and say, look, I am capable of doing 3 or 4x the amount of work compared to the other person because I have this skill. And that's still a marketable skill. And it's going to be for a while, I think. What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's kind of like one of the basic starting skills that you should actually have with these new AI technologies, is understanding how to think about a prompt and how to leverage it to help make your output more effective overall.
Kyle, where do you think a good place is we take this series? And I think what we've done here is just kind of left it open indefinitely, just to make sure that we're kind of covering as much as we can. We're staying up to date with everything that we can for the viewers, also for each other, right? Where do you think a good place for us to start this series is? And then maybe think about where we're going to take it. Think about maybe the first 2 or 3 steps.
Yeah, I think probably the first thing we should do is really get a little bit more nitty gritty into some of these terms. Like we discussed earlier, what is an LLM? But we should also probably discuss what is an LM and what is a GPT, And then we should be talking about, well, how do you prompt it? And then probably also start talking about, well, now how does this work with things beyond just chatting? Because there's this base layer that these technologies can do, as far as like chatting back and forth with you, which is kind of interesting, and it can help you with maybe some copywriting and things like that. But then how do you take that and go beyond just doing some copywriting? Or, how do you actually make it go do a thing for you? Right. Things like that. So I think we start with some of the basic stuff, and then we just iterate on this. And I know for us here, we would love to hear feedback from any of you who are watching this. If you have particular, problem points in your business, things that you notice that you're doing repetitively, or questions that you have about AI, even if it seems to you to be silly or simple, I bet you there's somebody out there who has that exact same question or that could benefit from your question. So we want to hear back from you, because we don't want to be an echo chamber of just talking about the things that we've been thinking about, because I think we miss out on a lot of opportunity to explore a lot of ideas if that's all it is.
And I think it's the expansion of ideas too.
Yes.
Right. We can come up with something that makes sense for us. And then someone out there, hopefully this is, to your point, Kyle, this is exactly what we want. We want them to go, well, have you thought about it this way? Or have you thought about adding this to it? And those sorts of things are going to apply to so many more people than we would have thought it was going to in the first place. But it's also that kind of, we want input so that we can expand out ideas. You know, we're limited. We're all limited to some degree. And so we want to make sure that we bring in a lot more people to help us expand those ideas.
Yeah.
Emma, where do you think, can you give me, I'm just kind of curious, more of a practical use than anything else?
So the number one way that I hear people using ChatGPT, for example, right, is, hey, I need to write an email, but I need it to be spicy nice. And right now my emotions are very high, right? So they will go in and they will talk to, the LLM and be like, I have this particular situation and this is what's going on. And right now I'm frustrated, but I need to come across professionally. Can you help my tone in a clear way, right? But that's where a lot of people stop. And there are so many other ways of utilizing this system and improving upon it. And so I'm excited for us to dive into that and show a lot of entrepreneurs that it's not just there for the spicy nice email. It's there to help create marketing content that's on your voice. And that way, when you train ChatGPT or whatever other LLM you're using, and then you put a VA in that seat and say, now I don't have time, I need to focus on something else. You've trained the LLM to think like you and to speak like you, at least in that tone and that desire that you have for your content. And then you're putting somebody in place to buy back your time of auditing it, reviewing it, posting it, those kind of things, right? And so that I'm really excited as we dive into push the regular entrepreneur, the regular visionary or operator in our real estate world to think outside of the box of an 8-hour or 12-hour, 18-hour day. And what can they do to utilize the AI and the automations that are right there at their fingertips?
It's interesting. I'm looking at the boxes of us here. Emma, I would say that are you naturally an integrator?
Yes. I love systems managing. So the E-Myth book, right? I've been going through that E-Myth book, and there's the visionary, there's the manager, and then there's the technician. And for most of my early career, I was that technician, right? I just loved doing. And then I realized that I have this passion and this ability to manage. But that's where I live and thrive most of my life. But when it comes to real estate and dreams that I have, I'm not afraid to be that creative visionary when I have time in my mind to allow for it.
If we're using that E-Myth example, I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, I would say that Kyle, you are the technical person, right? You're able to put these sorts of things together. Emma, I would say that you are the manager. You have a passion for that, right? I would say naturally, I can't think either of the two ways that you guys think well. And I would say that I'm probably the visionary side of it. I'm the crazy ideas, stupid things that 9 out of 10 don't work kind of thing, But I think that those dynamics as it relates to this series, this podcast, is going to be really beneficial to kind of see how these things play out. I might have the dumbest idea. Emma's going to take a look at it and go, well, let's really think about how this works. We're going to take it to Kyle, and Kyle's going to say yay or nay, right? It's either going to take time. It's going to take too much time to build. It's not going to give you your time back, or it's just not worth doing at all. Or it's not possible.
Right.
And so that's really, I think, what we want to do here is take these ideas that we all have that are practical, and how do we actually implement them into our business, from writing emails to actually then doing things for us, right? How do we take those tasks off our plate and do that force multiplier, make one employee 3 or 4?
Right.
That's what I'm really excited about with regard to this is how can we kind of think about this differently and then implement.
Yeah, there's opportunity galore. So like we are going to be able to cover so much ground. I'm really excited about this. It's we can go broad and we can go deep.
Yeah.
So I feel like we've got a good mix in our group here to be able to do both, which is really exciting, really, really unique. So yeah, I'm also excited to work together with y'all on this. So, you know, what I'll do since we mentioned wanting to collect feedback from folks, what I'll do is I'll put together a form. I'll use my integrator brain to get together a form, and we'll put it down in the description of the video wherever you're watching this, so that way you can go fill out that form, ask whatever questions you have. We'd also love for you to put it on the comments. We'll check those as well. But I think that'll be a good way for us to like actually aggregate all of our information together. So maybe we'll even run it through the these LLM models like ChatGPT to help us brainstorm some more ideas. That would be kind of interesting too.
Yeah.
Kyle, you know what we should do? We should create a little mini video of you going to like, I don't know, GPT and say, I want to create a Google form. What are the questions that I should put in the Google form to encourage engagement? You know, little things like that that you can put in there that actually really are practical uses for these sorts of things that I would never have thought about naturally until I met you guys.
Love it.
Was that one of those 9 out of 10 stupid ideas, guys, or was that a 1 out of 10?
I feel like I would spend more time on it than I would just to fill out the form.
I know, right? Right. I would say Kyle is past that, right? Because so Kyle already like has able to create this because he knows what should go into it. But for that beginner that does not have that creative hat on yet, or you know, going back to, you know, high school and college, that creative writing, right? And a lot of people think that they're horrible at it. Like, I hate that class. I don't want to be a creative writer. Don't make me write an essay. And so they get writer's block, right? Using the GPT to get past that writer's block to like, what the hell should I even put in this form, as an excellent way to start. So Kyle, it's going to take you longer to do that, right? But I think for our audience, it might be a great add value to show them how they can utilize to get through that writer's block.
Okay, y'all, this is a great example of why I think we all kind of need each other here. Because I'm like, oh, I just slap together the form and throw some questions in it. But, you know, I've done that enough that for me, it feels very, very simple, you know? But I think to y'all's point, that's great. Like, for somebody who maybe isn't familiar with that kind of thing, how would they do that?
Right.
So that's great. I'm going to make a commitment to you guys that we're going to do that. And we're going to put it out so that way folks can see how they could use something like ChatGPT to help them brainstorm some questions and then put together a form to collect some information.
Perfect.
Ironically, we're actually making Cal spend more time doing this than less time. So that's our job. Right. Kyle, thank you for your contribution.
Absolutely. Well, you guys are going to force me to have to replace myself with an AI for some of these things you request. So maybe it'll be good for me anyways in the long run.
It will be. Well, let's make sure to do that. The questionnaire part, whether you do the video or not, we'll figure that part out. But the important thing is we want to make sure that we do get as many responses as possible. We always do want your input. And that's going to be really helpful to see where this all goes. We don't necessarily have a syllabus, right? We are an agenda. This is kind of what makes sense for us to do and where is the value really going to be provided. And without your input, that isn't necessarily going to be there. So thank you guys so much for helping us out with that. All right, guys. Yeah, good first session. I think that what we really wanted to do here was just kind of put out that little teaser for what it is that we're doing, get some ideas for where we want to take this, and more important than anything, just kind of seeing your guys' faces. It's nice on a Monday morning to see your guys' faces.
That's wonderful to start out the week like this.
Darn right. Well, we're going to continue to build this out for you guys. We'll be posting at an interval that is yet to be determined, but we're excited to do all of it. So thank you guys so much for watching.
Thank y'all. And thank you, Mike. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you.
As always, it's a pleasure to hang out with you guys.